Hey everybody, we are live, doing our Facebook Live. Thought I would mix it up a little bit, show you a little bit of Mother Nature. Obviously, we live in Minnesota. If we get lemons, we got to make lemonade sometimes. You know, I just got back from San Diego last week, and of course, it's beautiful sunshine. And the one thing I thought about is, you know what? It is what you make of it, and that's like we talked about with the attitude yesterday. You know, we've got the controllables, the things we can control and the things we can't. And obviously, we live in Minnesota, we can't control the weather. It gets cold, snowy. Sometimes you just got to make the most of it. But it's so great to be out here in nature. You get tucked back here in the woods, and it's actually pretty warm once you get tucked back here. But let's talk a little bit. You know, today we're going to talk about habits and obviously creating successful habits. But let's just kind of recap what we talked about yesterday. So yesterday, obviously we talked about SMART goals. And remember, the acronym SMART goals stands for, the S stands for obviously specific. So we actually have to have specific goals. So for instance, we can't just say we want to lose weight, or excuse me, we can't just say we want to get healthier. We have to be a little bit more specific and actually say, you know, we want to lose weight, whatever our health goals are. The M, we need a measurable. So obviously with a weight loss goal, for instance, I want to lose 30 pounds. So just make sure we're specific, and then secondly, we're measurable with our goals. Third, we want to obviously make sure our goals are achievable. I mean, if we haven't had a great success rate with a specific goal we've attempted before, sometimes it can be a demotivator if we set that goal maybe too aggressively. I think it's good to have really, really strong goals that, you know, allow us to push ourselves a little bit. But again, we don't want it to be a demotivator by making it too challenging. So make sure it is your goals are achievable. And then obviously we want to make sure it's relevant. You know, if you've got a goal, for instance, of spending more time with your family, but you're studying for your master's and you're taking on more workload at your job, for instance, you know, depending on, you know, those variables, you have to make sure the goal that you've set is relevant within your current lifestyle. And then the T stands for, it's got to be time bound. So getting back to the weight loss, which is kind of an easy one to talk about, is if you want to lose 30 pounds, you set a goal of losing the 30 pounds within the next, say, 6 months. So you got to have a time stamp on that. And then of course you want to state those goals positively. So remember the acronym SMART when you're setting your goals. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be attainable, relevant, and of course time bound. And then remember, we also talked about the 4 controllables. Now the 4 controllables are, you set an intention, so we can really control what we intend to do or what we intend to think about. So for instance, obviously getting back from San Diego and then coming back to mountains of snow and a little bit more cold, you know, I had set the intention that I was going to have a positive mindset about it. You know, we're obviously on the tail end of winter, as challenging as it's been, but remember, we can control our attitude and we can control our intention. Another thing is our attention. So we place the attention on what specific goal, what specific outcome, or what specific emotion that we want to experience. So that leads me to emotions. Obviously, emotions are something that can create a lot of energy, whether it's positive or negative. And so what we want to think about is, say for instance, getting back from San Diego, the beautiful warm weather, and then now here in the cold, you know, I could have been very, very frustrated, could have felt a lot of frustration with having to deal with all the snow and the cold. But again, we talked about maybe changing the word frustration with fascination. Wow, isn't it amazing how this year we got so much more snow? And also, I'm not going to say that it, you know, you listen to the, well, you know, it's a character builder. Well, you know what, sometimes over the course of the winter, it can be pretty challenging in building that character. But I think one of the things is getting back to, you know, have an opportunity to get out here and do some snowshoeing. It's kind of hard to get motivated sometimes when, say, maybe the elements aren't ideal, but I mean, that's obviously why they make clothes specific for snowshoeing and skiing and getting out in the cold weather. So you just got to dress for it, get out, make the most of it, and then just make sure that you maintain a positive attitude, have a little bit of fun. We all need to have a little bit more fun. So we also talked a little bit about when you're setting your goals, picking specific categories. So for instance, like with my categories that I like to choose are my 5 mountain categories. And you remember from the video yesterday, I had the graphic of my 5 mountains, and I had my physical mountains. So I have my physical goals. So, you know, I have a strength goal, I have flexibility goals, I have, you know, weight and body fat goals. And so it's important to be very specific again with our goals. Establish different categories, and then, you know, obviously you want to have your plan. What are your plans to attain those goals? Secondly, I've got my mental mountain, and that's where I do my reading and my writing. I do my breath work. So that's really important to me, and that's generally what I like to do in the morning. That's how I start what I call my miracle mornings, and it just gets me off to a really good start. Some meditation, some breath work, some positive affirmations. So I think it's very important to establish these rituals or these routines so they do become habits, and we're going to be talking about habits here pretty quick here. But another thing is my emotional mountain. And like you said, there's so much negativity. Remember, we have about 20 to 60,000 thoughts on a daily basis. 95% of those thoughts are on repeat, meaning we're repeating the same thoughts day after day. And then the other thing is 80% of those thoughts are negative in nature. So there's a lot of negativity surrounding us, so we have to really guard our mind. We have to guard our emotions. And so I like to do a gratitude journal. I like to make sure I reach out to specific people and send out gratitude cards, just kind of showing and sharing how I feel and how lucky, how grateful I am to have those people in my life. The other one is intuitional. So we've got the sixth sense, we've got our inner wisdom, our inner knowing. And so I like to spend time in prayer and just really talk to myself and listen and look for internal guidance. That can be with my food, it can be with a particular, you know, emotional situation, it can be with a relationship. I just like to go inside and ask those deeper questions, and then you just got to have the patience to listen. And then the other mountain is I want to make sure I'm spending time with my Kokoro, or my heart-mind combination. That's where I'll do more charity work. So anytime myself, my family, our staff can get out and do some charity work, it's just such a great feeling to be able to do those things. So make sure you're spending time in specific categories for your personal and emotional growth. I think that's important for everyone to have that life balance as much as we can. So how do we kind of establish these successful habits so we can make sure that we're continuing to achieve our goals and reach higher levels? Aristotle said that 95% of what we do on a daily basis is actually habitually driven. And so we certainly are creatures of habit. And I know myself, I tend to be a real creature of habit. And when I develop really good, strong habits, it always seems like my life is operating at a much higher level. Things go a lot smoother. When I get into bad habits, not so good. So I really try and make sure that I set up my environment for, optimizing those habits and what I do on a regular basis. I'll just tell you, one of the things I got sucked into is never ever was a coffee drinker ever, and somehow I got into drinking coffee, and I, for whatever reason, started drinking the sweeter. So even I was putting in natural sweeteners, but just kind of got in this habit of drinking these sweet coffees. And then I just noticed that, I just wasn't feeling as good as I normally feel. And certainly my body fat was going up, and I just, that's when I hit my threshold, and I said, I got to re-examine things. So it was kind of a comfort thing, warm drink in the morning, and I just got into this regular habit, and I developed just kind of this sweet craving, and it just wasn't something that I had done before. So that was just a time that I had got sucked into a bad habit, and and then I just said, what, just like I talked about yesterday, sometimes you just have to raise your standards, just say, and I'm not willing to accept this behavior anymore. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's a little tougher to break a habit. Establishing habits can be challenging as well. And one of the things I wanted to make sure that I started to do was get away from the bad habit of staying up too late at night. Not really good for you hormonally, which I'm going to be talking about tomorrow, and the balance of hormones. But I said, to my wife, I said, you're so good about getting to bed at a really early hour. And that's something I'm going to work on. So I decided I've got to really make the commitment of, getting to bed at a reasonable time. Well, then I started getting up at 5 a.m. and then I pushed that to 4:45, pushed it to 4:30, and now I get up anywhere from 4 a.m. to 4:30 so I can read, I can meditate, I can go through my affirmations, I can do some writing, I can do my breath work. It's just an outstanding way to get going in the morning. And so that was a habit that I've established now for the last few months, and it's just so strongly ingrained. It's just now how I am choosing to live my life, and it's just, things just are so much more effortless, and I just feel like I have a greater bandwidth to control and mitigate stress and handle stressful situations, because I've built up that capacity, because I do breath work and I do meditation and I do affirmation, so I can start my day in a really positive mindset. So one of the things is, when we look at really establishing habits, I think one of the things is we have to start with baby steps, or what I like to call micro commitments, or tiny habits. There's some really great people out there that are experts in establishing habits. BJ Fogg is one guy that comes to mind. James Clear is another one. But these guys are really masters on how to establish habits. They're great reads. But they talk about how important it is to start with just really micro commitments and tiny steps. I think people really overestimate what they can do in the short term, but they underestimate what they can do in the long term. And so that's really important, that, if you haven't worked out for a long time, don't set a goal of working out every single day for an hour, because chances are, you're probably not going to last with that. And I think it's important for people to set very, very small, tiny habits. So let's just take exercise, for instance. Right now, we're doing a program at our studio where we actually have a downloadable app that goes right to our clients' phones that are participating in the 6-week program, and it will ask them about 5 daily habits that we're really working on. And one of the habits is drinking water. And so physiologically, you know, we want about half our body weight in ounces. And of course, there's variables that go into that. But just as a general rule of thumb, half your body weight in ounces. So I'm a 200-pound guy, so I need at least 100 ounces. And so with a lot of our clients, if they're not used to drinking a lot of water, for us to say you got to drink half their body weight in ounces, we've got some clients that struggle with drinking 30 ounces of water. And you know, years ago, I had such kind of a hardcore mentality where it's like, hey, this is just what you got to do. But I've come to the realization that if we don't really, you know, baby step and nurture our clients along the way, then they're really not going to establish long-term habits. So for this particular challenge, what we're having them do is just put 10 ounces of water by their bedside. So when their alarm goes off or when they get up, their first objective is to drink the water, 10 ounces. So our focus isn't, hey, get your half your body weight in ounces of water. It's just establishing the practice of drinking water. And so it's amazing because we send out the questions and then they have to say, did they do it, yes or no? And so there's also the accountability factor. So anytime you can also implement, you know, whether it's working with a coach, a friend, a family member, just say, hey, help me stay accountable. And the more people that you have on board with your goals or, you know, particular habits you want to establish, the greater success you're going to have. Now, another thing too is, you know, you talk about physical activity. Physical activity is something that I've always enjoyed to do. I've always loved being active, but that's not everybody. And so for me to actually tell someone, you know, you really need to work out 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week, when they really struggle moving their bodies at all, they're just not going to be successful. So, you know, what we've done is we've broken this down is we want you to move your body for 4 minutes. Just 4 minutes a day. So in this particular challenge, it's pretty tough to lose that challenge. Now, even if you're not motivated, you get home and you don't feel like going to the gym, you don't feel like working out, even if you have a workout area at home, just walk your steps, go for a walk, 4 minutes, that's all it takes. And what happens is you start developing this momentum. And habits and momentum are just like, you know, working a muscle. So you work a muscle and you work it a little bit harder, that muscle is going to respond, it's going to grow, you're going to get stronger. It's just like our musculature, those habits, there's something called neuroplasticity where we can actually change our nervous system. And what we want eventually is to develop automaticity. And automaticity is just where that habit becomes automatic. So think about this. We brush our teeth, most of us hopefully brush our teeth a couple of times a day, once in the morning, once at night. And so it's just become just a habit. So anytime you can take an established habit and then there's something called habit stacking. So after you brush your teeth, what you want to do is take 10 diaphragmatic breaths. So you just get done doing your teeth brushing and you just breathe through your belly and you do it mindfully for 3 breaths. Okay, that's something everybody can do. So the trigger, the established habit or the trigger is brushing the teeth. And then after you do that, then obviously you do your deep diaphragmatic breath. Or you can also do something called draw-ins where you take your belly button and you suck it in towards your spine, that'll activate your deepest abdominal muscle called your transversus abdominis. So you could do where you suck your belly in, you hold it for 10 seconds, you do that 3 times. Then eventually it starts becoming a habit. You can do that at a stoplight. Every time you stop at a red light, you do, 3 mindful breaths or 3 drawns. So you can see these are, and some people might say, well, these are ridiculous. These are such tiny little habits. Well, that's the idea. They are tiny habits, and they're very winnable. And so that's the important thing, is to develop that automaticity where it just becomes something that you do. When it comes to exercise, I don't have to think about working out on a regular basis. It's just part of who I am. It's part of my lifestyle. It's what I really enjoy to do. And even some of the times I don't necessarily feel like working out, it's so ingrained in my nervous system. It's just what I do. So I think one of the things too, if we take a look at things like the 3 R's of habits. So the reminder obviously can be the the teeth brushing, or a stoplight, or when you lie down at night, you think of one thing that you're grateful for. And once you have those established things, then you just continue to build on those with other habits. So one of the things you really want to focus on is making sure that the habit that you're trying to establish is not too hard. And it's so easy to want to go big. And sometimes, again, getting back to that statement I made about people overestimate what they can do in the short term, but underestimate what you can do in the long term. So these little tiny habits start to stack on each other, and you build momentum, and the next thing you know, your life is changing dramatically. So you really want to start small. And then the next thing is, Jerry Seinfeld really had a really cool thing. He said he developed don't break the chain strategy. And his strategy there was he wrote a new joke every single night. And then what happened is he had 3 nights, and then 4 nights, and then 5 nights, and 6 nights, and 7 nights, and he did not want to break that chain. He didn't want to break the streak. And so sometimes that can be very powerful, but you actually have to, make the commitment in your head that you're going to do that. And then another thing too is set a clear intention. Set a clear intention that this is the habit I want to establish. So if that's exercising 3 days a week, just say, the commitment I am making to myself is I'm going to work out 3 times a week. Okay? Working out 3 times a week, that might mean moving your body for 4 minutes to get started. But you got to get started somewhere. So just remember, set a clear intention. The other big one, and this is the one that I got to chuckle out of, but I started to think about it, and it just makes so much sense that when you do a tiny habit, let's just say you get done brushing your teeth, and then you do 3 diaphragmatic breaths, or you do the drawns. What you have to do is celebrate with a little victory dance. You have to, all right, I'm awesome. Whatever, you just got to get a little bit crazy, because when you say, yes, I'm awesome, what it does is it really activates your reward centers in the brain. And then you start to, again, develop that momentum, because in life, we all kind of need those little rewards. And those little rewards eventually become big rewards, because your life starts dramatically changing. So another thing we want to think about is, really controlling your environment. If you come home and you have a tendency to always want to eat, something crap because you're tired, you don't really feel like eating something or cooking something, if you have, cut up vegetables in the fridge, instead of snacking on chips or popcorn or, whatever other snacks you might typically snack on. Then you go to your fridge and you grab your cut up vegetables. Because sometimes when you don't feel like it, the act of literally cutting the vegetables, it's too much. As bizarre as that sounds and as ridiculous and unmotivating as that sounds, that's just how we're wired sometimes. Oh, I don't even feel like that. It's just like we've had so many clients that say, well, if I had a chef who just made all my meals and I could eat healthy. Of course we all could, but you know what? That's not the reality always. So, make sure you take a look at your environment currently. Set up your environment for success. Just like we talked about putting the water, right by your bedside. Well, now you're setting up your environment for success. Put your shoes out, your walking shoes, in a place where you can see it, so it motivates you to maybe go for a morning walk. Pack your exercise clothes already. Have everything already packed. So you get done with work, you immediately go and do your workout. You just got to think of things like that. And then it's very important to surround yourself with, a really, really supportive group of people, a supportive system, whatever that is. But like we talked about in some of the earlier videos, it's very important to feed your mind with positive things, and then also to be around positive people. So if you're around people that are always supporting you on your habits, supporting you on reaching your goals, your probability for success goes up infinitely. So it's important to have a good support structure. And then just, again, getting back to the pre-commitment of your habit. Just say, this is something I know can change my life, can change my family's life. I'm going to commit to X. So thinking of all those things, I want you to take the time and the energy to just write down a couple of tiny habits that you can implement in your life, and just start small, and let's build on those successes, and let's ensure that next week, next month, next year is even better than it's ever been. So that's my little chat, my live talk for today. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about hormonal balance and why hormonal balance is so important, some strategies and some tips of how we can really do some very simple things to optimize hormonal balance, and some of the detriments if you don't optimize those hormones. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. Not sure where I'm going to be tomorrow. I might be in the Bahamas. I might not be. I might be back here. Maybe I'll be in the warm studio. But look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Remember, if you have any questions, please make sure you put those in the chat box. We'd love to see some of the feedback. If there's anything that we can do to serve you better, if there's any information that you guys would like us to expand on, please let us know. If you got some value from the video, please like it, share it with a friend or family member you think that can benefit from it. Until next time, I will see you, and I'm just going to go have a little bit more fun in this beautiful snow. We'll see you later.